Tonight, we examine a developing situation that has captured the attention of diplomatic circles across the Atlantic. A diplomatic crisis between the United States and Poland, one of America's most steadfast NATO allies in Eastern Europe, has emerged as a significant test of transatlantic relations. This isn't just another diplomatic disagreement. Poland has been a cornerstone of NATO's eastern flank, a key partner in European security architecture, and a nation that has consistently aligned itself with American foreign policy objectives. Understanding what has brought these two allies to this point requires us to look beyond the headlines and examine the deeper factors at play. Over the next 12 minutes, we'll analyze the roots of this crisis, examine the key issues driving the disagreement, explore what both nations stand to lose, and consider the broader implications for NATO and European security. Let's begin our analysis. To understand the current crisis, we need to establish the foundation of U.S.-Poland relations. Since Poland joined NATO in 1999, the relationship between Warsaw and Washington has been characterized by strong military cooperation and shared security concerns, particularly regarding Russia. Poland has consistently been one of the few NATO members meeting the alliance's defense spending commitment of 2% of GDP. In fact, Poland has often exceeded this threshold, demonstrating its commitment to collective defense. The country has hosted U.S. military bases, participated in American-led operations from Iraq to Afghanistan, and served as a vocal advocate for robust NATO presence in Eastern Europe. The strategic importance of Poland cannot be overstated. Geographically, it sits at the crossroads of Europe, sharing borders with Germany to the west and Ukraine and Belarus to the east. This positioning makes Poland a critical buffer zone and a vital logistical hub for NATO operations in the region. In recent years, Poland has sought to deepen its security relationship with the United States through initiatives like increased troop rotations, the establishment of forward-deployed U.S. forces on Polish territory, and major defense procurement deals worth billions of dollars. Polish leaders have consistently advocated for a permanent U.S. military base, which some have informally called Fort Trump, signaling their desire for an enduring American presence. However, beneath this strategic partnership, tensions have been building across several policy areas. These include disagreements over trade and economic policy, differing approaches to certain European Union matters, concerns about judicial reforms and democratic governance, and most recently, divergent views on defense burden sharing and strategic priorities. Every diplomatic crisis has its immediate triggers, even when underlying tensions have been simmering for some time. In this case, several specific issues have converged to create the current situation. First, there appears to be a disagreement over defense commitments and military funding arrangements. While details remain subject to diplomatic confidentiality, reports suggest that discussions over cost sharing for U.S. military presence in Poland have reached an impasse. Poland has invested heavily in hosting American forces and purchasing U.S. military equipment, and questions have arisen about the terms and sustainability of these arrangements. Second, policy coordination on Ukraine has become a point of friction. Both nations support Ukraine, but they may have different perspectives on the approach, the level of commitment, and the strategic endgame. Poland, sharing a border with Ukraine, has particular security concerns and has shouldered significant responsibilities in supporting Ukrainian refugees and serving as a logistics corridor. Differences in how these efforts should be coordinated and supported have contributed to strain. Third, economic and trade issues have complicated the relationship. Poland's position within the European Union means it must balance its Atlantic partnership with its European commitments. Trade disputes, technology transfer concerns, and economic policy coordination have all played a role in the current tensions. Fourth, communication breakdowns at the diplomatic level have exacerbated these substantive disagreements. Reports indicate that key consultations may not have occurred at critical junctures, leading to surprises on both sides and a sense that each nation is not fully hearing the other's concerns. What makes this situation particularly noteworthy is that these issues have erupted into public view. Traditionally, strong allies manage their disagreements through quiet diplomatic channels. When disputes become public, it signals either that those channels have failed or that one or both parties believe there is value in taking their case to a broader audience. To properly analyze this crisis, we need to understand the perspectives and concerns driving each nation's position. From the Polish perspective, this situation reflects deeper anxieties about commitment and security guarantees. Poland has made substantial investments in the transatlantic relationship, both financially and politically. Polish leaders have stood firmly with the United States even when other European allies have expressed skepticism about American policies. There is a sense in Warsaw that this loyalty and these investments should be reciprocated with clear, unambiguous security commitments. Poland's geographic position creates unique vulnerabilities. The country's historical experience, including occupations and partitions, informs a national security mindset that prioritizes tangible guarantees over abstract assurances. Polish policymakers want to see permanent U.S. military infrastructure, not just rotational deployments. They want clarity about America's commitment to defending Poland under all circumstances. Additionally, Poland's leadership is navigating complex domestic political considerations. The government must demonstrate to its citizens that its foreign policy choices are delivering concrete benefits for national security and economic prosperity. Any perception that Poland is being taken for granted or that its concerns are being dismissed carries domestic political costs. From the American perspective, the situation involves balancing multiple competing priorities across a global landscape. The United States maintains alliances and commitments worldwide, and resources, while substantial, are not unlimited. American policymakers must consider how commitments in one region affect capabilities in others, particularly given strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific and ongoing challenges in the Middle East. There may also be concerns in Washington about the effectiveness of current arrangements and whether the bilateral relationship is structured in a way that serves both nations' long-term interests. Questions about burden sharing, cost effectiveness of military deployments, and the optimal allocation of defense resources are legitimate policy considerations that any responsible government must address. Furthermore, the United States must manage its relationship with Poland within the broader context of NATO and European security. Bilateral arrangements cannot undermine alliance cohesion or create precedents that other allies might demand. The United States seeks arrangements that strengthen NATO as a whole, not just bilateral ties with individual members. This diplomatic crisis extends far beyond the bilateral relationship between Washington and Warsaw. The implications ripple across multiple dimensions of international security and alliance politics. For NATO, this situation presents a significant challenge. The alliance has always relied on a foundation of trust and shared commitment among its members. When two important allies experience public disagreement, it raises questions about alliance cohesion and can create uncertainty about collective defense commitments. Other NATO members are watching closely to see how this situation is resolved and what precedents it might set. The crisis also has implications for deterrence in Eastern Europe. A key element of NATO's deterrence posture is the credibility of its commitments. Any perception of wavering or uncertainty in the U.S.-Poland relationship could be interpreted as a weakness by potential adversaries. Maintaining clear, credible deterrence requires not just military capability, but also visible political unity among allies. From a European perspective, this situation highlights ongoing questions about the continent's security architecture. European nations have been discussing strategic autonomy and the need for greater European defense capabilities independent of the United States. A crisis between the U.S. and a major European ally like Poland could accelerate these discussions and influence how Europe thinks about its security future. The crisis also affects other nations in the region who look to the U.S.-Poland relationship as a model or indicator. The Baltic states, Romania, and other Eastern European NATO members watch closely because they share similar security concerns and have pursued similar strategies of deepening ties with the United States. How this crisis is resolved will influence their own policy calculations. Beyond security matters, there are economic and political implications. Poland has been an important economic partner for the United States in Central Europe. Trade relationships, investment flows, and technology partnerships all exist within a context of overall bilateral relations. Prolonged diplomatic tension can create uncertainty that affects these economic connections. As we analyze this situation, the question naturally arises, how might this crisis be resolved, and what does a path forward look like? Diplomatic crises between allies, while serious, are not unprecedented, and history offers examples of how strong relationships can weather difficult periods. The key is whether both sides are committed to finding solutions and whether they can create frameworks for addressing their concerns. Several elements would likely be necessary for de-escalation. First, high-level diplomatic engagement must occur in a substantive way. This means senior officials sitting down for candid conversations about each side's concerns, priorities, and constraints. These discussions need to move beyond talking points to genuine problem-solving. Second, both nations may need to demonstrate flexibility and creativity in finding mutually acceptable solutions. This might involve new frameworks for cost sharing, revised approaches to military deployments, enhanced consultation mechanisms, or innovative arrangements that address Poland's security concerns while respecting American strategic considerations. Third, clear communication to publics and allies will be important. Part of managing this crisis involves explaining the path forward in ways that reassure domestic audiences in both countries and signal to other allies that the transatlantic partnership remains solid. Fourth, the resolution should ideally strengthen rather than merely restore the relationship. The most successful diplomatic crisis resolutions don't just return to the status quo, but create improved frameworks that prevent similar problems from recurring. Looking at the broader picture, this situation, despite its challenges, could ultimately serve as an opportunity. It forces both nations to clarify their expectations, articulate their priorities more clearly, and build more resilient mechanisms for managing their partnership. Sometimes relationships emerge stronger from difficult periods precisely because they've been tested and both parties have reaffirmed their commitment. The diplomatic crisis between the United States and Poland represents a significant moment in transatlantic relations. It reflects the complex challenges of maintaining alliances in a changing global environment where strategic priorities evolve, resources are constrained, and expectations must be continuously negotiated. As this situation continues to develop, the fundamental question remains whether these two nations can move beyond the current tensions to reaffirm their shared interests and rebuild trust. The answer will have implications not just for U.S.-Poland relations, but for NATO, European security, and the broader international order. Thank you for watching this analysis. We'll continue to monitor this developing situation and provide updates as events unfold.